is initial recognition. And the basic idea is that we should have initial recognition at cost. Now, if you buy an asset, normally the cost is very, very straightforward. But if you make an asset, well, then maybe there's a little bit more to it than that. Page 65. Page 65. Page 65. There is a construction of a building, and we start the construction of the building on the 1st of April, and we complete the construction of the building on the 31st of December. It takes us 9 months to build the building. We buy land, we buy materials, we buy labour, we buy finance costs, we buy an opening party. So we incur lots of costs. There are three bits of information. I want you to have a look at this question. It's a numerical exercise. Maybe it touches on something that we haven't talked about, but look, I really think, if I just give you 3 minutes, you should be able to get to grips with what's happening here. So, can you please have a look on page 65. We are building a building for our own use. I am very, very happy to capitalize the cost of the land. I am very, very happy to capitalize the cost of the materials, but there is a story, and I ought to read the story. Although I've spent 100,000 on the materials, 20 million of the materials is glass that broke, is concrete that was set, faulty, had to be destroyed, was ultimately not included in the building because it was spoiled. Another 15 was incurred because we designed it incorrectly. I do not capitalize mistakes. If I'm capitalizing the cost, it shouldn't include the mistakes. The mistakes have to be written off as expenses. So the mistakes do not give me a lasting benefit. They've not been incorporated. So therefore, this is effectively materials of 65. I'm going to write off errors. The costs incurred due to errors are not capitalized. Labour. I am happy to capitalize the labour costs if the labour has been spent engaging building the building. But 10 million of our labour costs was spent clearing up the broken glass was spent sorting out the damaged concrete. 10 million of those labour costs were not spent building the building, but sorting out the mistakes. I will not capitalise errors. They do not give me a lasting benefit. Finance costs are an expense. Finance costs are an expense. If you borrow money, the cost of borrowing the money should be expensed. Finance costs are an expense. Unless the loan relates to the construction of an asset. If the only reason you have the loan is because you are buying the asset, constructing the asset, then the interest, the finance cost on the loan, is an extra cost that you specifically incurred because you're making the asset. And therefore, the appropriate thing to do is to capitalise the cost. You can only capitalise the cost, the finance cost, during the period of construction. If you were not building the building, you wouldn't have borrowed the money. If you wouldn't have borrowed the money, you wouldn't have the cost. So the cost specifically relates to the construction of the building. And for that reason, we capitalise. I repeat, finance cost expense, finance cost expense, finance cost expense, unless we're looking at an item, the monies that we borrowed relating to the construction of the asset. So, I am going to capitalise the finance costs. I'm going to capitalise the finance costs during the construction period. During the construction period. The finance costs are 50. But the finance costs relate from April to March, whereas the construction only relates from April to December. So 9 months is capitalised only. So 50,000, 1, 2, 3, times 9, divided by 12, that is giving me there 37,500. That is giving me 37,500. Cost of the opening party? Never in a month of Sundays. Never, 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 never. That's not to do with the cost of the building, it's just having a party, isn't it? There's no lasting benefit, so that would not be capitalised. Yeah? So whatever this comes to is the cost of the asset. The party costs are expensed. Yeah? The party costs are expensed. The party costs are expensed. Of course they are. So the 250 plus the 65 plus the 190 plus the 37.5, that is giving me 542. 500. That's the cost of the asset. Now, we have, believe it or not, just done another accounting standard, the accounting standard being International Accounting Standard 23. So this is covered ISA 23. This is effectively on page 54. So, yeah, ISA 23, borrowing costs. Borrowing costs are an expense, or they're capitalised when they're directly attributable to the construction or production of an asset. You should commence when the expenditure is incurred. Capitalisation should be suspended in the event the development is interrupted. If the loan is drawn down or incurred in stages, then you will need to calculate an average cost. So in our example, our loan was 50, but maybe in another example, the loan might be 10 for the first month, then 20 for the second month, then 30 for the third month. You might draw down the loan in stages. So obviously you would then have to do an appropriate calculation. Capitalization should cease when you have completed the building. Yeah? If you're just dealing with snaggings, then you should cease the capitalization. So far as I'm concerned, yeah, we looked at PPE, we've looked at capitalization of borrowing costs. I say 16, I say 23. So,
I'm just curious. Okay, when it comes to material or labor,
yeah.
okay, we can purchase material in line with the time frame, like 9 months.
Yeah.
Right. Labor, we can hire labor for that particular period.
Yeah.
But when it comes to finance costs, as it is mentioned, it's for the whole year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we just happen to complete the building within 9 months.
Yeah.
So the thing is, doesn't the whole cost relate to construction, even though we finish the construction within 9 months?
Yeah, once you've finished the building, you're not going to capitalize any more labour costs because the labour cost is they're not working on the building. Once you finish the building, the interest on the loan reverts to being a P&L expense. You're not going to be able to capitalise that finance cost for the length of the life of the building. Because otherwise the cost of the building will keep on going up and up and up and up and up. So once you've finished the building, it's almost it's a concession that you can capitalise it during the period of construction. But once you've completed the building, then you freeze what the cost is because the building is now being used. Yeah? Is that okay? Investment properties. Investment properties.